What's going on? What's going on? So, the US population is roughly 338 million people. About 170 million of that are females, 166 million are males. Of that, men represent 49% of the population, but nearly 80% of the suicide rate. 80% of suicides are from men. 93% of the incarcerated population is represented by men. And about 10% of the time, men are awarded custody in custody battles. Welcome to Hammered Out Podcast 003. Today, we're talking about mental health, men in society today. All of you, welcome Adam Johnson podcast. We're going to be talking about this because it's very specific to us as men. We can relate to a lot of this, and especially from the veteran standpoint, which we'll kind of get into. So everybody, welcome Adam.
Hey guys, I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me on in. I always appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. So let's before we kind of peel the layer of the onion back, let's put this in context a little bit. All right. So let's think about it like this. Per 100,000 men studied, and this is CDC, right? Which I get it. A lot of people be like, oh, it's the CDC. You can't trust anything. They're pretty good at stacking numbers, though. The CDC says measuring about 100 men sample pool, 275, roughly 275 men created a plan to kill themselves. Of those 275 men, 27, or out of that 100,000, 27 self-reported suicide attempts. 8 visited an ER because of related to suicides attempts. 4 were hospitalized from the actual attempt of suicide, and 1 dude succeeded. Here's another sobering statistic. Of that sample pool, right? Big picture. So here's a thought. Of all the guys that do that, right? 70.2%, they chose a firearm to execute that final order. So they didn't kind of want to. They didn't kind of want it to be over with. Like, they really wanted the noise to stop. They wanted no chance of error. 70%. That's crazy that the smallest demographic, when you look at male to female ratio, accounts for the highest rate of suicide in the country. And that even more than that, they are so committed to, like, it's not like, oh man, I kind of hope somebody like finds me and then brings me back. It's like, no. 70% wants it, like, they're fully committed to it being over. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight.
You got to realize too, those 70%, it takes, for some men, it takes it's years and years of build up. We'll talk, later on in the podcast about all the things that the men go through on a daily basis, just being dad, just being an employee, just being a provider, just being a protector. There's so many levels of pressure on men on a day-to-day basis. Now, I'm not saying woe is me as a man, but I know, and I'm glad that as we're getting older, mental health is becoming more and more of the front runner. Like you and I having this conversation now would not have happened 20 years ago. So this is huge. It's just putting out, awareness that we're out there. Some dudes need a little more help than others, and there's nothing wrong at all with trying to get some help. Nothing wrong at all. So, but a lot of the stuff I've known two teammates that unfortunately suicide, and they both left letters, and there were some dark, issues going on that they've been dealing with for years. So I'm glad we're having this conversation with the public to spread awareness.
Yeah. So for those of you that are kind of tuning in, you don't really have any idea about like Adam's background or my background. We both come from the military, from the Army side. We were both war fighters, just in different areas. And you get to a point where you start looking back. And I know for me, anyways, we talked about this about a year ago. I had been retired for not even a year. And every time I go live, my dog has to go get water. I swear.
Of course.
No, it's okay. Let him drink. I have a dog, people, and he drinks water. I'd been out for about a year, I think. Is it overwhelmingly loud?
It's fine. It's a dog drinking water.
I actually kind of needed this break, man, because yeah, let him drink. It's okay. He needs water too. It's life, right? Like, this is not a pre-recorded episode,
Nope.
man. This
Life
is real
happens.
life. I have a real life, and my dog is a part of that. So, really thirsty.
Like a camel, it loads up once a day.
Yeah. It's every time I get on, man. I swear. It's all right. He's an old dude, man. We're losing viewership too. That's okay.
Oh man.
Oh, dogs. All right, cool. He's gonna lick the floor now. I don't know why. All right, so it's a Cane Corso, an Italian Mastiff. He's a big boy. I seem like my camera's like flickering. Okay. Anywho, so Adam and I both come from the Army warfighter side. And as I was saying, I think I had been retired not even a year. And we had lost more people in a year from suicide, more dudes that I knew, that I served with, and that we were talking about this, guys we served with, than we lost overseas in combat.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Like, how? Right? Like, you start asking those questions. How? Why? Nobody wants to talk about it.
It goes to show you that the fight within our head is so much harder than deploying to go fight the enemy. The enemy's in front of you, and there is no gray area. No, you know what your mission is. But as a man, as a father, as a protector, whatever, as I said, so many pressures, and every day could be a different little wrench thrown into the scenario with kids, with family, with job, and everything else. Downrange, we know what's expected day to day, and it almost doesn't vary too often, too much left to right. That I think that's one reason I know guys that would rather be deployed than be back here in garrison. I had lots of teammates like that because life is simpler downrange versus our job and everything that goes around us on a daily basis here back at the house. So I think that's one phenomenon that no one understands is downrange is so much simpler for the warfighter or the military guy in general. And a lot, not to say that that's a blanket statement for everybody, but a lot of hard charging guys rather be downrange, charging hard, again with the clear left and right limits and go execute versus back here is so many other variables thrown into the occasion, to the situation.
Yeah. I think you just talk about like the yeah, that's rough to hear.
Yeah.
The average man has like, okay, I'm going to preface everything that we're saying right now for the keyboard warriors. All right. Like, I fully understand as a man that has been with the same woman for like ever, that like, or in relationships since high school, right? Like, I understand women go through like their own struggles and whatnot. So this is not to discount in any way, shape, or form a woman or what she goes through. I am a man and I can speak to a man and what he goes through, which is why we're having this podcast today. If I was a woman, we would probably be talking about women's issues. All right. So please take that into context, or into consideration as like you hear us talk about men specifically, because that's what we can be experts about, because that's what we are and that's what we've been surrounded by. The average man has so much weight on his shoulders. You just think about, he's supposed to be a protector, right? So 24/7, 7 days a week, never gets a day off, has to be the protector of that castle, that family, right? He has to be the provider. I mean, we can argue pay gap and all this stuff. We're not going to do that, right? Bottom line is, the majority of men occupy the toughest professions in the country. All right. And they deal with having to be that provider, right? And we sometimes lose focus, I think, as a society, about men want to obviously please their wives. Hey, I want you to be comfortable, want you to have the things that you'd like to have, because that's how we're raised up, right? I think we're failed in how we're raised up to think like that. But so much so that a man would work 80 hours a week, just so that his wife could have the nicest car and the nicest things, and he's hardly ever at home. But she wants him at home, and she wants to be able to have those nice things. So now we're talking about dudes essentially in a bracket, that are 500K and above, like be able to make the kind of money to be able to provide what guys think their wives actually want. And they probably don't even want half that stuff in reality. They probably, would rather have their man at home investing that quality time into that family unit than, a bunch of Dolce and Gabbana. And if I'm wrong and it's hitting a chord here with anybody, then you don't have a high value companion in your life, right? But I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. But you think about the things that a dude has on his shoulder, man, like providing is enough on its own. Protection, geez, that's a big ask. And then preservation of the family unit, right? A man is going to be blamed 100% of the time if the family falls apart. So how fair is that? Like, that's a crazy amount of weight.
Yes. And if a man ever does fail, the reasons behind it are irrelevant. It's the fact that he wasn't able to provide. It's as simple as that. Some people, I thrive under that pressure. That pressure makes me want to go work harder, makes me want to go after, that the bigger option or bigger opportunity, that kind of stuff. But some guys, man, it's that along with everything else, as far as pressure on their shoulders, it's just too damn much. And some guys, instead of this goes both ways, but some guys, they don't have that outlet to talk to. Their spouse may not be as understanding, or they may not even have that guy friend, that battle buddy that they can call up and talk to. So where do you go with all that pressure? It's just boiling up in you. Where do you go when it's been a couple weeks, a couple months of just bad luck over and over and over? You're not getting any help from anybody at work. You don't have a buddy to talk to. Your spouse is on your back because we're running behind on bills. It is a compounding, expansive process, and it usually doesn't happen over a couple of days. It's usually stuff that builds up and compounds over time.
Man, like, let's also be real too, right? Like, I would say it's a societal thing, but dudes aren't loyal, right? Like, I don't know how many guys I've known. I don't know how many guys I've known, literally, that have taken a swing at my wife. Like, we're cool and stuff like that, and then they try and slide into her DMs, like, like, if you don't, if worrying about protecting your family, like physically and I'm about to say monetarily, that's not what I mean. You know what I mean? If it's not enough to financially protect your family as well as physically and emotionally and spiritually, providing for them in those ways and preserving the family unit, you got to worry about dudes kind of coming in behind. And if you have like a high value woman, obviously you have nothing to worry about, but you talk about like, who do you have to go to, right? Like when you should be able to, it's hard for guys. I've heard this a lot from dudes, man, how hard it is for them to get to a point where they trust another guy enough to be like, man, you know what? I know no matter what, this dude's going to be there for me. Like if I die right now, I know that he wouldn't try and marry my wife, but he would take care of her like it was his own sister, right? Like, you know, like that kind of loyalty, it's rare out there, man.
So with that loyalty, I'll add to that as far as the outside influence that almost well many couples have. We're talking about as far as married couples of the social media outside influence. So we have. It took me a long time to mature emotionally out of this stage I'm about to talk about, which is caring about what people think about, what people. You still there? Time out. All right, he can catch back up. It 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 took me a long time to get over people or worrying about what people thought about me or people thought about what we were doing, what we're posting on social media, those types of things. When myself personally, man, my wife matured way before I did. But when I realized that we just take care of us and don't worry about any outside influence as far as our marriage, that like we never had any issues, but it made me um it made me a better husband when I stopped thinking or worrying about outside influence or outside anything, any kind of outside BS. So that's on that's huge. Again, I believe a lot of marriages fail or have complications because of so much outside influence with social media, friends, family, all that kind of stuff, instead of just two damn adults being two married adults and figuring things out together.
No, I 100% agree. The there's a lot of trying to find the right words here, man. There's no right words, but there's a temptation, I think, for people to want to go to who they know is gonna probably side with them, and make
Oh,
them
yeah.
feel better about everything. And we've told this to each other multiple times. I know, like, and the dudes I'm closest with on this earth, man, like have had this conversation with, but it's like, man, if you're not challenging me to be better than I am right now, I don't need cheerleaders. I need dudes that want me to be a better man. Like that'll tell
Yep.
me, hey, is that your best effort?
Yep.
Really?
But anyway, that's also a very mature, like you had to mature into that. Us at 20, 25 years old, we want people to tell us how good we are. We want people to acknowledge our accomplishments. Most of
Mm-hmm.
us do at 25. Like, we're full of piss and vinegar. We're beating our chest. We run this fast. We do this many push-ups. We're this God's gift at 25 years old. So again, when I say we, that's how my little brain thought growing up. In my little small town, I grew up around very small minds, where we do worry about what everybody's thinking. Everybody knows about everybody's husband and wife and who talked to who sent whose pictures, all that kind of stuff, and it's not good for anybody's relationship. So I had to mature into what you're talking about. I wasn't always as level headed or as, I guess, free thinking compared to uh, the average guy, the average married couple. So time has helped me a lot with me and my wife.
So if guys don't have, somebody that they can talk to, let me just say this first off, and anybody that knows me already knows this. All right. Like, look, if darkness is getting around you, like my phone is on 24/7, like just call me, man. Like I'll drop whatever I'm doing. Um, but barring that, right? Like if for whatever reason, like you don't know who I am and like you're watching this or you don't know me and Adam and you don't feel comfortable with like reaching out to us, I'm going to tell you a little quick history fact. All right. What I'm wearing right now is a Silent Legion Project hoodie, right? The Silent Legion Project really kind of came into existence because we were losing so many dudes and that we served with, and it created an instant hole and a few of us, man, and we were just kind of like going through depression of our own. Stack on top of that family stuff that was going on, and being newly retired from the military. And then you start talking to other dudes and you realize it's not just guys like us that served and went overseas and did all that stuff that are dealing with problems. The everyday guy is out here dealing with a lot of the same problems. I would tell you that if you kind of fall into that boat where like you have issues that are mounting up on you, you reach out to somebody that really, really cares, man, like, and do it rapidly, because the reason I believe so many suicide attempts happen and successes happen is because I think we have this false belief that we can just stack it up and pack.
Well, it's just me again, so I'm gonna take it and run with it. There he is. I don't know.
Dude, I never have this issue. I think we're getting a lot of traction, and the internet
Okay.
doesn't want us to have traction.
Of course.
Wait, now we're all frozen. I don't know what's happening.
I think we're good.
So you can hear me, but your video is, I don't know, whatever. Your video is frozen. It's not frozen and live. Okay, whatever. We're going to go with it. So whatever, moral to the story is go seek help. All right. You're not alone. Oh, am I frozen? I'm not frozen.
No, you're fine.
Okay. Try dropping your resolution down a little bit. What does that mean?
Yeah. Mine's pretty low.
I'm streaming at, I don't know. Who knows? Anyways, this is all trial and error, this whole live stuff. This is why I like pre-recorded stuff too.
Getting better each time.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Yeah.
So it should, man, I don't know why. Yeah, whatever. I'm shuffling the deck to see if it'll, you both look good on mine. All right. Well, Vanessa, I do not know how to do it in this thing that I'm in right now. Okay, well, whatever. I don't know what's happening. Adam, I'm gonna like, yeah, I don't know, whatever. You're good.
I see.
So everybody else can. Huh? Yeah, I can hear you. I can see you. It's just like on my screen, not live. It's a little weird. I don't know. I don't get it.
Sweet. We're good.
Anywho, yeah, we're good.
Anywho.
So, all right. So there's an amazing amount of pressure on men. We kind of get that. The thing is that what kind of kicked off this subtopic was like gaining, good quality men around you that you can lean on. Like that is the hard part in life. Honestly, I don't care if it's other good men or just good people in general, right? Like filtering through what seems to be, a very big pool of people that have counter values than you do. It's hard.
So one thing that a lot of times you'll hear that, for a person in need to find someone to talk to. But what we don't hardly ever hear about is that person in need. How do I say this? That person in need taking time for themselves. I said before when talking to you about having your mind to just be still for 10 or 20 minutes and shut the world off. We at all times, from the moment we open our eyes to the moment we go to sleep, we have something engaging with us with something, some music, some phone calls, some emails, some text message, some radio. Something is always happening at all times. And if we're in a depressive state, we're in a bad area of mentally, there's never a chance for our mind to take a deep breath and relax. So what I'm getting at is for those people, they can try something when you're going down a bad road. Yes, find someone to talk to, but at the same time, you also can take just 10 minutes to yourself, almost like a little meditation of shutting the world down around you. And if you've never done it, it sounds very hippy dippy. I got it. I didn't believe in it before myself, but whether prayer can be your thing, playing a guitar can be your thing, just something that's your thing that shuts the world off for 10 or 20 minutes, that is centering, and that can ease so many of the noises, the voices, the thoughts, the remembering stuff. Slowing your mind down can ease so much of that. And I'm not gonna say it's gonna stop anything or prevent anything, but it will ease the pain. It will ease. It will slow your brain down. That's what's getting us. It's not the physical pain that most people commit suicide. It's the internal battles that we go through. That's the depression. It's the internal battles that create that depression. It's not most times it's not a physical issue. So your brain, we don't talk about exercising that or giving it its due rest as well. We talk about because even getting with people, talking to another person, you're still being engaged. You're not taking the 10 or 20 minutes to yourself to which is so beneficial. Again, some people like to do prayer, they like to do hymns, they are humming, whatever is your thing. It's very, very, very beneficial. And I think that needs to be put more in light, not just find someone to talk to, not just, go to counseling, but that's also having mindfulness and controlling what your brain thinks about is also something that you can start doing on your own 5 or 10 minutes a day at the house.
Dude, like, so when you were up here for the event that we did, and you had you brought that big ginormous freaking tank with you, man, and I'm like, what are we doing here? Like, we're gonna fill it up with water, because you do your daily morning dunks, right? And so we get back from the event, right? Now I know you know this, but I'm just recapping for everybody else. We get back from, what time did we wake up? We woke up at like 6. We were out the door at like 7:30, and
Ish.
then we did the event pretty much from like 10 o'clock in the morning, and we got back roughly around like 9:30 at night.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's cold. It's like what? I don't know. The water temp is 51,
Ish. 50. Yep. About. Yeah.
50-ish. Yeah, and so George, you and I, man, we're sitting around talking, and you're like, "Hey, I think I'm gonna do a cold plunge now." And then George is like, "Yeah, me too, bro." And then I'm like, "Ah, man, I can't be the only one out, right?" So it's like, "Nah, you guys enjoy that," and then peer pressured into it. But I'll tell you. So what I tell you? My goal was before I got in. I was like, 30 seconds.
Yeah.
My goal is to get into 50-degree water and be able to stay in it for 30 seconds.
Yeah.
That was my goal. 3 minutes and 30 seconds in later, so a total of 4 minutes I got to before I started like really kind of being like, man, I don't know. Like, what am I doing in here? Like, I might not get
You
out
did.
on my own.
You did great, man. I'm telling you, you did really good.
So why I bring that up is for anybody else that's like, kind of watching. About 15 seconds into it, my brain just shut off. And it was like straight up like, I have to focus right now on the only thing that matters right now. And that's me breathing and staying calm, because every part of me wanted to just jump out right then and there. Right. I have been watching Adam, like, you do this stuff online for like over a month, man. And I was just like, man, I'm happy for you that this works for you. That wouldn't work for me. And then lo and behold, I was like, wow, man, like, I pray. I'm a man of faith. It's no secret. I'm God first, family second, country last, right? Or third. Um, But that ice bath, man, or getting into that cold water, man, it just does something different. And it really, for me, anyways, I noticed a difference, not just in the physical side of things, but like it, it was kind of like you can't reset your brain, but I mean, it is the closest thing to being able to reset your brain that I've ever even heard of, man, or experienced.
Yeah, so I've been for the viewers, I've been doing cold plunges for today was day 53 in a row, 53 consecutive days. Even with the uh, with Christmas, it was freezing. We're doing it, um, and because I'm not gonna say I suffer, but yes, I do experience PTSD. I do experience anxiety, I'm not gonna say I suffer. Amongst I run a business. I have a family. I have many responsibilities on a daily basis. So for me, doing that cold plunge every single morning, I usually I wake up at 4:45. I take 20 minutes to meditate to just kind of see my day, prepare mentally. I do a little self help book reading to again to kind of calm my nerves and just relax my brain. Start off on a good vibe. Do a little bit of yoga to get the blood flowing, and step number four is getting that cold plunge. And I can honestly say that has singularly helped me with my PTSD. It's helped me with my anxiety. It's helped slow down my brain, slow down my thought process in situations. I have found myself in many situations where prior to learning about meditation and mindfulness, I would have exploded. I would have lost my mind. It would have been an ugly scene. Not to say I would have got physical or violent, but my temper would have just, I would have lost my mind, um, cussing and whatever. Those same instances that used to happen as I experience them today, much more level headed, much more chill. Um, and I want to say a large part of that is to doing the cold plunges, or at least just being mindful, just doing meditation, cold showers, just something that grounds me and centers me on a daily basis, helps me, prepares me for the rest of my day. And I believe in it. And I'm doing 90 days in a row, but after the 90 days, I'll still continue. I believe in I believe in the feeling and the result each day.
And it gets back to like something like you talked about too, like before, and and this is something I would tell dudes that are struggling as well. Like I didn't really think about it until you brought it up, but dudes need a challenge. Like,
Yes,
you've either been in an environment where it's highly competitive, and let's be honest, man, like most dudes at this point in life are like with a woman. And if you don't think that's a highly competitive environment, then you're crazy, right? Like it is. Somehow they like outnumber, or well, they don't outnumber us. We outnumber them, right? So like you have to compete essentially in life, you know, or not, whatever. But like it's kind of how society is right now, right? It's like you got to compete against other dudes for a chick. Um, but that's highly competitive. But any case, like you're in a competitive world, and as a man, like you're kind of raised up to be competitive in every way, shape, and form. Athletics, academics, career field. Um, Dude, being able to like hit the reset button a little bit is like that can really help take you off of the edge of the ledge. You know, so,
absolutely,
yeah. So
absolutely.
there's other stuff out there. I tell people, if you ever get lost, man, get in your Bible. But that's my faith, and that's what I believe. Um, Maybe it's not for everybody. Maybe that's not the exact Christian thing to say, but like, everybody's got their own journey, and nothing's by accident. Yeah, why is my light flickering? Um, but anyways, so I don't really want to talk too much about the male population being like representing 93% of incarceration, but and I don't, because I think we all know what right and wrong is, but I don't think it's an accident either that more crimes are committed. Or let me take that back. There's a lot of statistical data to support what I'm about to say, and I'm not going to list it all off. You can cite me later. All right, but like men are convicted at higher rates than women for the same crimes committed. All right. Meaning the conviction rate is higher and it's harsher for a man than it typically is for a woman. All right. I'm not saying that's even across the board on every single charge out there, but statistically speaking, that is true. So, and I'm going to kind of say this too, and this will get to the 10% of 10% of men usually awarded custody, right? 10%, 90% of the time women are given, they win the custody battles, right? Because there's this notion in our country still today that a child is better off with a woman in their life constantly than they are a man, and that man, even if he doesn't have his child, should still be producing the primary support for that child, right? Well, reality looks like this. People get divorced, women get child support, and they still have to go out there and get 2-3 jobs to be able to make even close to the income that they were making when they were married, right? So the reality is that woman is not in that child's life, right? Because she's out there grinding, right? So like, anyways, I haven't went through a divorce, I haven't went through custody battles, but I mean, it's rough to watch the people that you love go through that.
Yeah, so I can speak on that personally. I did go through a divorce, through the whole proceedings, the multiple years of court, and yeah, man, as a man, and again, whoever watches this has their own opinion. As a man, as a father, you have. I'm shocked that it says as high as 10% getting uh, custody. Um, Myself and many others weren't part of the 10%. Even though living conditions were such, amount of income was such, you know, can pile on all types of characteristics and everything else. It doesn't matter at the end of the day. For the majority of the time, as you stated factually, with statistics, that the kid is going to go to the mom. So what does dad do? So dad, I personally, Emmett, this is a great time to bring. I personally know quite a few guys that are in miserable marriages for the sake of they can't afford to get divorced, and they know if they get divorced, they'll never see their kids. In a lot of cases, again, this isn't for everybody, but the people I'm speaking about this is exactly their reality. Good friends of mine that, um, yeah, man, a buddy I talk to every couple of months or so, and we have heart to heart conversations every couple of months, and sure enough, he knows he's in let's say a loveless marriage, and let's say that in the event that he were to get divorced to go try to find happiness, he would never see his children. He would never see his kids again, and that's so typical. So many men, part of that build up, that long term build up we were talking about earlier, as far as getting to that end point, it begins with being so unhappily married for the sake of still being able to see my children. Um, that leads up to the boiling point, the flash point where you can't take no more. Yeah, man,
Dude, and
that's the sad part of being married for a lot of men. Sad days.
and the flashpoint, is so unpredictable, right? Because as one guy may have like a solid team around them, a good support system around them, another dude may see the end and be like, you know what, man, I'm going to check out now, and that's the unfortunate thing. Whether you kind of hit on like PTSD and anxiety and stuff. We'll go ahead and get into some veteran specific stuff right now, but so like a lot of people don't know this, but the veteran community loses 18 to 44 people a day to suicide. Now there's these great like 22 a day, dude, 22 push-ups a day for support. I think I was a part of one of those once, because it was COVID and it's like you're stuck indoors. It's like, all right, let's get fit too. But it's not 22 a day, it's more than that. And what's horrible is like when you put it in perspective, like as far as like population data and census wise, veteran community makes up roughly 4% of the US population. So men make up 89% of that force.
Wow.
Right. So when you think about, like, we've all heard things. I posted a video, man. Another dude like sent it, man, and I was like, almost cried watching it. But it was like, Johnny Cash's. It had a Johnny Cash song in it, and it was like pouring out all this data on dudes having the toughest jobs in America, that do the dirtiest, grimiest jobs. That go to war. That are fight. Not to say women don't have there, that there aren't some women that are doing dirty, grimy jobs, that there aren't some women that have went overseas and fought. It's not to discredit those who have, but the statistics is that 89% of our fighting force are males.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's over 90% or something absurd like that. It's like 90 some percent of the manual labor workforce in America are men.
I bet it's close to 97% if I was guesstimating.
Dude,
Bricklayers, concrete workers,
miners,
all those,
right? Like,
railroad construction, all of those are the majority. Contractors, construction guys, if it's out in the elements and it requires picking up heavy stuff, most of the time it's a man.
and why is that, right? It's because we were built, man. We were
Yep.
built to do these jobs. We were designed
Absolutely.
with that intention, but with our veteran community making up essentially 4% of the US population, which we're saying is like roughly right around 338 million people, right? And if we're losing 18 to 44 people a day, right? And 89% of that are males. If you look at the data on dudes that are dropping versus women, it's a 4-to-1. So we have less in population than women, and we are dying off at a rate 4 times higher, or 75% higher than our female counterparts, right? And it all comes down to this. And here's where you start turning up your volume. All right, if you're at home and you're a dude, or whoever you are watching this, right? The sad truth, man, is that dudes, they've been beaten into submission. They've been browbeaten over decades for having emotions, right? We had a generation of great men, the greatest generation that went and fought a war, and they didn't come home until that war was over with. But because of how they were raised and how much horror they went through, they were like, dude, we're just like not going to talk about this. We're grateful to be alive. But they weren't the greatest generation in some ways, because what they should have did is they should have started talking, right? You couldn't get a World War II veteran to talk about the effects that the war had on them. And because of that, everybody was suffering in silence. Everybody wanted to grandize like this white picket fence life, man, the perfect family unit. And in reality, you had higher rates of alcoholism, suicide, depression, anxiety, and broken families because dudes were literally leaving, right? They were just leaving their families. And, a guy can only take so much. So when you stack on top of it, and any human being can only take so much. But when a dude kind of grows up in a society that teaches him, hey, you know what? You hide your scars. You act like everything's okay. You put your needs last. To do anything other than that is selfish. And now on top of that, you have all this other pressure, external pressure, as far as families. And let's be honest, man, I don't know a whole lot of guys that have wives at home that are like cheerleaders, that are like, you're the greatest thing ever. Like, you're doing such a great job. Like, how can I help you? Like, reality is, man, it's real life, right? And you're going to have issues, and you got to figure out how to overcome those in a in a positive way. But most guys that are in tough jobs, they're gone a lot. So they're probably hearing their wives complain a lot about them not being home. And this needs fixed and that needs done and this. And why can't you just be home more? Why can't you give me more attention? Why can't you give me more time? And when you add it all up, dudes are offing themselves at record high numbers because they feel unvalued, unappreciated. And bottom line, like the only way to stop the noise is to turn it off.
Yeah. On top of that, of all of the responsibilities that a guy has to do, when again, I'm not everything that he does that he's supposed to do. That's the response is you're supposed to. Like you're supposed to take care of everything around the house. You're supposed to pay out. You're supposed to. There is no reward for that. That's what's expected of you to get you to zero. Like that's where you need to be just to earn your worth. That's at ground zero right there. You've done all this stuff. Now you're here. Now So that's also. And let me just say, what we're talking about, I experienced most of this in my first marriage. I've told you this at your house. I'm the happiest damn married man I know. So my wife now is nothing at all like kind of the common scenarios that we're talking about this evening, as far as general marriage interactions. Like we all have friends. I lived it once. I have lots and lots of buddies that still deal with this stuff on a daily basis in their marriages. So, man, I'm fortunate. I tell my wife all the time. I know most men wishes they had a relationship kind of like what we go through. My wife is my biggest cheerleader, and likewise, vice versa. Um, I have seen what we're talking about. I've lived what we're talking about, and now I'm on the other side of that fence. I wish every man could experience what I experienced with the joy and happiness of having a partner, and women as well. I know this goes both ways. So we're talking about the man side, but also there are lots of terrible men that also don't give their wives the attention that they deserve. It goes both ways. I'm a happy married man, dude. I'm a happy ass dude. So yeah.
Yeah. I didn't even think to like look into the data about like the breakdown between married and single. But man, if I had to guess, I would say that it's probably leaning on the married side. I mean, most of the guys that I've known, I think just about all of them have been like married.
Yeah. Yep. The ones I know, absolutely. Absolutely married.
So yeah, so I got through like we got through most everything that I really had written down that I wanted to tackle when it comes to the mental health game. I don't know, man. It's such a sad like topic. I was telling Adam before we got on here, like I was going through this data researching, for this podcast, and man, I was almost in tears just thinking about the raw volume of men that when you just look at data, it's one thing, but then you start thinking about dudes that you knew and that aren't here anymore. And you just think to yourself, you're like, bro, if you just would have come to me, man, like, like you'd still be here. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so how do we get there, right? How do we get to it? And it ain't going to be cold plunges by themselves, and it ain't going to be, one thing or another. How do we get there? And that's kind of what the Silent Legion mission was. It began as, right, to be that place that we could be our brother's keeper in like the ultimate way. Like whatever you got.
Yeah, man. So with people, I'm a big proponent of self-assessment. Like look into yourself and don't BS. Like I'm not great at everything. Let's talk about my shortcomings. Like let's take a journal out and let's write down where my shortcomings are, what I'm not good at, what I'm doing wrong, and where I can improve. That's step one, is identifying where you are in life, like reality. Like give yourself a full-blown reality check. Everything is perfect. Number two is resources. nowadays you have so many apps and YouTube. There's so much positivity out there. There are so many people doing great things that started from nothing and whatever you're interested in. So no matter who you are, there are people in your niche that are just full of positive vibes. They've overcome these hardships. They've had death in the family. They've had a loss of income. They've had those issues. They had, I mean, you name it. Someone has went through it before. You're not the first person to go through what you're going through. I promise you that. I wasn't the first person to deal with what I dealt with. I won't be the last person. So you have resources. And then third is personal accountability. Like whatever you watch, these people on YouTube and Instagram, they're doing great things. One of the ladies I like, I can't think of her name right now, but she always talks about your mind. You have to act like you're the person you want to be starting now. You have to act like the person you want to be starting now. You don't wait to have all your stuff together and to be confident and be professional and be well spoken. I'm starting today. That's who I am now. And time's gonna catch up with me, but I'm being the person I'm going to be. I'm practicing that now. And you will literally trick your brain into being more confident, being more assertive, being more calm. That really happens, and that's something that I didn't believe in. I get into all this hippy dippity stuff, but I believe in that stuff now. Your mind is so much stronger than you give it credit for. But we never talk about focusing on us. We talk about external resources. Going to talk to somebody. So there are plenty of external resources, but you also have you. You also have 10 minutes in your car by yourself before you go to an event to recenter yourself. You also have you have things out there. You don't have to suffer. So that's, and then number four, I'm gonna say this to anybody watching, is cut out negativity. And that includes people, that includes, and this is just my 2 cents, that includes family. That includes family. I always said this to whoever listens to me. I said, no one can treat me any kind of way just because of a title, just because they're a mom, an aunt, a cousin, a sister, whoever. No one can treat me any kind of way because of a title. I have friends who are closer to me than most of my family. I can give a damn about a title. So number four is cutting out negativity. Those four things: use the resources, take time to yourself, um, start acting today like you are that confident, that calm person, that go getter, whatever you want to be. Start acting like that now, and then watch how quickly it may be 2 or 3 weeks before you start seeing a change in how you go to the mirror in the morning to shave, how you put on that tie, how you get ready for work, how you make that phone call. You're going to see changes biochemically on how you project yourself to the world, and then it's going to come back to you. So that's my hippy dippity little spiel today. Y'all roll with that, and that hippy dippity stuff. I'm gonna keep saying that works for me, and I've seen people implement different strategies because I always say this to them. Says one last time, man. I'm sorry. Number five is if you keep doing what you've always done, you'll be where you are. If you're a freaking miserable, unhappy person and you're doing the same damn things you've been doing for the last 5 years, why would you think tomorrow would be different? For us to have a different result, we have to have different input. It's that damn simple. You can't keep doing what you're doing and expect tomorrow, next month, next year to be better because it isn't. There you
Yeah,
go.
no,
That's my
like I like that, man. Like I've heard that a lot in my life, like that same saying. If I always do what I've always done, I'll always be where I've always been. Right? Like,
absolutely.
you know, I think some of it too though, like, and I'll talk from personal experience, right? Like my anybody that knows me knows like I've been very transparent, like, sometimes annoys my wife, but like, like I've always been transparent about like, our struggles. And, one thing that I kind of realized, through, my own struggles was like you're gonna get treated how you allow yourself to get treated. Right. Like you can, and I'm not saying I was abused or anything. I wasn't, but I mean, like, people do, they go through stuff, man. And sometimes you're like, yeah, maybe I deserve this. I think guys will trick themselves sometimes into being like, man, I had this coming. I'm just going to take it on the chin. Right. And then before you know it, some guys, I've known guys that their whole marriage, man, is like just taking it on the chin nonstop. And then when
Yeah.
they do stand up for themselves, they do it in the biggest, most explosive way possible. And it just creates more issues. And So like I think I would love like dudes to kind of get it through their head, like how you stand up and demand a better treatment, it matters just as much as the treatment that you get. But you got to start there. You got to stand up firmly, confidently, and lovingly and be like, hey, enough.
Absolutely. So I'm going to answer George's question. George said, "How do you deal with feeling guilty for cutting out negative people if it's family?" George, I look at it like this. Me personally, I care about me more than anybody. My mental my mental health and my physical well-being is more important than how anybody in my family feels that they can treat me. I got to live with me. I got to go out into the world and with what's on my mind. If I have people at home or in my family that are always negative and pulling this and that, I'm gonna take that back to my own house. I'm gonna deal with my own family with that negativity. I don't need any of that. And there's no feeling guilty because why don't they feel guilty for treating me in a certain negative way? It's got to be a two-way street. I don't feel guilty if you don't feel guilty the way you treat me. Again, it's just my it's easier said than done. I'm a very black and white, very cut dry kind of person. And
Yeah, I
family,
wouldn't feel
friends,
guilty.
acquaintances, I don't feel guilty at all. I don't feel guilty for cutting negativity out of my life. I don't
I'm
at
gonna
all. So,
I'm gonna kind of say something here too, man. Like, right? Like, I heard this. I give a lot of credit to a lot of people because I've been around a lot of wise cats, right? But like this dude, he was talking about how who's the most important person in the world to you, right? So there's this argument. You take a circle, like a penny or something like that, right? And draw it on a piece of paper, put yourself inside of that circle. Whoever you're sending that text message to, whoever you're talking to face to face, whoever you are interacting with in that moment in time is literally to you the most important person in the world because you're giving them your attention and your time. Right. So when you start thinking about it like that, like, hmm, is that person the most important person in the world to me? Or do I feel like maybe some guys I know feel like they owe it, right? Like I got to be a good example. I owe it. Like I don't think I'm not hearing him say you got to be rude and mean and negative back to people.
no,
But I'll tell you what, man, you stand still. If you're always constant, right? If you stand still, people are gonna just pull away from you. The people that don't have any value to add to your life, they're gonna get real distant real quick.
I mean, if you think about it I mean, let's just throw out any emotion. Let's talk about logic. Logically, the answer is I don't need negativity in my life. Logically, no one is gonna combat me on that, right? We all know bad is bad. We don't need bad. So the problem that I have with people is that they allow, because you're family, because you're my brother, because you're my aunt, you can treat me a certain way. You can call me, you can expect more from me than you expect of yourself. You can talk bad about my family, my wife, my kids. I'm not saying it's happening to me, but I'm saying those are things I've seen within within my family. I've seen those things, and that's not something. Me as I'm almost 40 years old. I'm a mature enough and confident enough in myself that I don't need that in my life. When I cut out negative people, when I consciously, about maybe 6 years ago, I said, there's no reason for this person in my life, for this person, just because of a title. Um, that man, that was a weight off my shoulders. That was less noise and drama in my head. And I was better for it. And if that person feels a certain way again and they're in the wrong, then you can't fix that. That's not my problem. How you feel about me is not my problem. I have my own problems in my head to worry about than what's between your ears. I have enough happening up here. I don't worry about what's between anybody else's ears. If we have a
Yeah.
good relationship, I'm all for it 24/7. But if it's not a mutual positive experience, I don't need it.
Yeah. And like sometimes like any good relationship, man, like, you know, sometimes somebody's got to carry somebody a little bit of the way. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And that's just being a good battle buddy, right? Like it's like, "Oh man, I've got you. I'll carry you a little bit, man, cuz I know you need it. And I know you're going to do the same for me one day when I need it." And I think that's like invaluable. to be able to have dudes like that around you.
Mhm.
I know, like, personally speaking, like, we've had a lot of dudes come and go with this whole Team Anvil thing and the Silent Legion and whatnot. A lot of what I've learned, like, I used to get kind of like upset because like you'd have like good quality dudes like pop in, and it's like, man, you could see that they just needed to be surrounded by really good dudes, and then they'd like shine up like real nice, and then they just like revert right back to what they were doing before, and then before you know it, they're gone, man. And you're like, dude, you had a good group of dudes around you, man. All you had to do is ride that train, man, and like you would have gotten better. It's like that whole adage, right? Like, if I want to get better, I got to surround myself with people better than me.
Mhm. Yep.
Um, so
Yep.
I think there's something to be said about like our society, man. It really has like almost kind of tried to trick. I think it's tried to trick dudes into, dude, the attack on gender roles is crazy. But like I tell people this all the time too. In a marriage, if a man doesn't lead, all right, then essentially what you're doing is you're yielding to a woman to lead. And we weren't built like that. Women were not made to be the head of the family. All right. And that may be unpopular for some people. I'm not saying women don't lead. My wife leads in ways, like she leads our family in ways, but like I lead the family in different ways. And it should be like a good partnership. But I mean, a lot of guys have kind of taken a back seat in leadership and become just straight followers. And then they wonder why everything's upside down. And it's like, well, nothing is right. Like, there's no balance. It's all one person. All one person has to do is bat their eyes one way or cut them another way. And you're totally pliable and like, yeah, okay, I don't want to deal with it, so I'm just going to go with it. I know a
It
lot of guys that
happens a
fall into
lot.
that category.
Was it you heard the term death by 1,000 paper cuts? A lot of
Yeah.
guys that happens to them is over time. Over time, just getting beaten. It's the small little uh, jabs here and there that over time just keep building up. Yeah, yeah. And I've seen guys, in a sense, lose their masculinity within the
Yeah.
relationship. I've seen guys kind of at the from year one to year four, like tuck his tail.
Mm-hmm.
Just a different been just beat down, for so long. It is what it
And you gotta
happens.
fight against that, man. And I feel like
Yes.
that's why, like, you could be best friends with your wife, man, and you should, man. God willing, like, you have that great of a relationship where you're like mad tight, right? But like, your wife is not going to be able to sharpen you like a man will. She just can't, right? Like, we need good dudes in our lives, even if it's just one good solid dude, man, that no matter what, you pick up the phone and you're like, I need help now. He's coming to you. He's like, no questions asked. He's like, I'm there.
Mhm.
Like, that kind of loyalty and camaraderie, it's like, there's a bunch of programs out there now. I'm seeing it's starting to catch on, man, where it's like, hey, dudes, lift up dudes, and it's okay to not be okay. Like, they even have like
Good.
dude camps. Like,
I
it's
haven't
like,
heard of this stuff.
yeah, it's like boot camps or something like that. It's like lions, not sheep, and then there's this other one. I don't know. But moral to the story, I think, big picture for everybody is for the dudes that are listening. And you know what? Let me speak to the women that are listening. You know, like, I think I think guys, like, people don't know what they don't know. I think we can all agree on that. People do not know what they do not know. Now, should we be able to have an understanding of the areas we know nothing about? Sure. Right. But like, generally speaking, we don't know what we don't know. So if you want to see your spouse get better at something, maybe figure out a way how to motivate them, even if it's through example. Right. Like, I talked about men being leaders, the natural leaders of families, and that's true. But that whole saying we used to hear, like, behind every successful man is a strong, successful woman. Like I wouldn't even say behind a man, because I look at a marriage as a partnership, right? Like my wife has walked through my life with me, not behind me, and sometimes she's straight up carried me, you know, especially a lot of the time when I was in the army, when I wasn't home very often. She was the one that was like the only thing that was constant. It was guaranteed I was going to come home, eat dinner, and then leave, and then maybe not show back up again for like 2-3 weeks because I was doing training, and then come home and do all that stuff for a little bit and jump on an airplane and go overseas, right? That was our life. Yeah. Um, but maybe find a way how to motivate the guy that's in your life, instead of ridiculing him. Even though you may be irritated with him, he probably doesn't need to hear it but one time, and it's already like, okay, I got it. But whatever. I'm not saying like you should give people passes on anything. I'm saying like there is a way to talk to people to where they don't feel like belittled, demeaned, or disrespected, right? And respect's a pretty big deal for most dudes. So
All guys, all dudes.
yeah. Yep.
So let me speak on marriage. I'm gonna keep it very PG-13. As I said before, I went through a 10-year. My very first marriage was so typical, so typical. It was every army marriage. It was every marriage. What I've learned is that for for a marriage to be, there she is. My wife just walked in. For marriage to be extremely happy, you have to sell out for each other. It's no less than that. You got to sell out. No less, not in all aspects. Like we do things together. We do what he likes, what she likes. You sell out because that's the person you're gonna be with for the next 30, 50, 70 years. Sell out. Anybody say?
Oh, okay. I was wondering.
So yeah, that's my beautiful wife over here. We're doing a podcast, guys. Excuse me, I'm busy. I'm live. Excuse me. So
I was about to yell louder, but then I realized I would have just hurt your eardrums.
No, yeah, she. So just sell out. Like that. That has been the answer to my extremely happy 7-year marriage, and we have nothing but uh, beautiful future ahead of us. Like I have no reason to believe different. So that's huge. It's not about yes, you can talk about roles, you can talk about who does what around the house, you can talk about all that kind of stuff, and all those are super duper important. But at the end, at the very basis of the marriage is you got to sell out for each other. Sell out. Whatever you think that means, do it. Sell out.
I think
make
a
him
lot of
or her happy.
guys, yeah. Well, and I would say too, man, like not saying you can't do that, but like dudes need to learn how to not look at their partners or the people around them to fulfill them, right? Like,
Yep.
now we'll probably disagree on this, but like it's whatever, right? It's relative, right? So that's why there's two people here talking. People can get different perspectives here, but like, so I heard a great sermon at church from our pastor, man, and he was talking about how we were designed, why the divorce rate is so high and everything else, man. It's because people are constantly looking at other people and their relationships to fulfill them and like be their savior and stuff, instead of, hey, we were designed to get love and the grace from God, and become better people on our own and learn how to love us, right? And only through that are we ever even capable of being like good and healthy for other people around us, right? Like we got to be good on our own or for ourselves. Learn how to get right with you.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I have to be right before I go to my wife. When I'm not right mentally and I'm off balance, it throws us off balance. So us, the individuals, gotta have our stuff squared away before we bring anything to each other. That now, don't get me wrong, there are times where we help the other person, but it's never a point where like she's a crutch or I'm a crutch for the other person. It's never like that. We both are We both are 100% responsible for our own mindset, our own goals, our own everything. And when the two of us put that together, it multiplies. But at no point do I live through her or she lives through me, or I have to have her and vice versa. None of that kind of stuff. We're better together because we're so solid apart.
Yeah. I'd also like argue that setting goals, like I feel like internally, like most men are goal oriented beings. Like having a good goal, man, even if it's just, hey, you know what? Before I get out of bed, after my alarm clock goes off, I'm going to take 10 deep breaths or whatever. I'm going to do that plus take a cold shower for like 1 minute, one whole minute. Start my day off. Like just starting like little itty bitty things that you can like accomplish, man. Like who was that general, like McCraven or whatever, that was like, hey, get
Yeah.
out of bed, you know, make your bed. You know,
Yeah.
you've already accomplished like two wins for the day.
Yeah.
You know, so there's a lot to be said about setting up little things, just doing consistently the same things, man, to build, you know, some positive feedback inside of your own body, man. Because guess what? Like, just like in a self-defense situation, man, where somebody kicks in your door, the cops aren't at your house to stop that from happening, you know. So nobody's coming for you. So you gotta be there for you right there on the spot. Same thing with like our mental health, man. We have to be good with ourselves. You know what? Here's some hard truth too, guys. If you're struggling, man, a lot of times, and I know this from personal experience, man, a lot of the times you're upset with yourself, you know? And that's hard to say, and it's even harder to hear. But sometimes, man, like you got to learn how to love yourself and forgive yourself. And life's too short.
Yep. Absolutely. We all make mistakes every single day. Every day I make mistakes. And I'm okay with it because I know I'm gonna make a mistake tomorrow too. I know what's gonna happen. Without a
Ain't
doubt in
nobody
my mind,
perfect.
I'm gonna mess up tomorrow. 100%.
Mhm. It's
That's
inevitable because we're
part of
imperfect.
part of humanity. Yep, we are very imperfect.
Yeah. But all right, so we made it, man. We are well under an hour and a half, which was kind of like my goal. I think other than anything we've said, we could probably talk for like 6 hours about like mental health and all that stuff, but we'll probably circle the wagons a few times.
Yeah.
I don't know, Adam, you got anything like you want to like kind of leave the world with?
Yeah, just as I said before, personal accountability. Just kind of look inward before you blame other people. Like, yes, there may be people in your life that are causing extra trauma, but also look inward, and you can cut out a lot of that stuff. Drop negative people. A title is not worth your mental health. So someone that is your boss, your cousin, that has a certain title that you think has to be in your life, they don't. And so that's it. Just look inward, take care of you. That's all you can control is your actions and your thoughts and your reactions. All you can't control what anybody says to you, what anybody you can't control anything outside of your thoughts and your physical actions. Take that for what it's worth. Don't get wrapped around other people's thoughts, other people's opinions, other people having a bad day. Just take care of you.
That's good stuff. I'm going to leave the world with this. We've all seen a basketball court. In the middle of that basketball court, we call it center court. It's a big circle, right? And depending on your wingspan, it's usually like right around 6 feet in diameter, right? So, or wait, what's the full circle? Circumference?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it
Circumference
is
is full
diameter.
circle, yes.
Yeah,
Diameter is
circumference.
halfway through.
Yeah. So the circumference, you know, arms out, side to side, usually about 6 feet, right? But that's what that circle is. Anyways, we're all up to speed. There's a basketball court, there's mid court. And inside that circle, right? If you stand inside of that circle, anything that comes inside of that circle, and you can put your hands on it, you can control it, right? But anything outside of that circle, all you can ever hope to do is influence it. So I'm not telling you to go put your hands on something. What I am saying, though, is if we understand at the end of the day, the greatest power that we have is to influence the people around us. And we stop thinking that we can control how we get treated by controlling other people, man, we'll be so much better mentally, because it's a game changer. Because now, instead of attempting to control anything like that, now we're just like, now it makes us measure our worth. Now it makes us think about, what am I willing to accept? What do I deserve as a human being? And how do I stay alive when nobody's coming for me except for me? All right. So I'm not going to say something corny like I love you all, because that wouldn't be true, because I don't know everybody out there, but but I do greatly care for, we're talking about men today, so I'm going to be very specific, like I care about dudes. I'm always open and available, man. Like, I mean, I'm not like super available to like drop everything I'm doing all the time, but you get what I'm saying? Like, you drop me a message, you pick up the phone, you call me if you have my number, and a lot of guys have, man. And that's why we're doing this podcast today, because it's, we're starting off the new year right? Don't think that you're alone, because you're not. So as for me, that's all I've got for the universe. Really appreciate those of you that have tuned in, those of you that are going to watch this. Reach out if you're in trouble. Until the next time, I'll see you out there.